because we've been talking about training and retraining. It's important we talk about this. The federal government's decision to set 18 as the minimum wage for candidates sitting for the senior secondary school certificate examination may remain in place, according to the House of Representatives Committee on Basic Education. The policy, effective from 2025, prevents students under 18 from taking the exam and affects university admissions. The policy, linked to the 6334 education system and the Universal Basic Education Act, aims to ensure students' cognitive and physical development aligns with their educational progress. While the decision has sparked debates, the government is working on a framework to ensure current students are not adversely affected. You know, sometimes the stories are just on two sides. I'm mentioning this because we also saw a report that the Ministry of Education said that they did not talk about the examinations, that the age limit was for the entering the university and not for the examinations. And now we're seeing the reps coming out to say that they are actually aligned, supporting the ban on under 18 SSCE candidacy. Well, let's get your thoughts on this story, Ambassador.
Well, if you are not going to admit a child having successfully passed his or her exams into the university because of age, why in the first instance will you collect money and accept that child to enroll in such exams? I think it's a criminal or immoral action. So if you know as a government, as JAMB, because the money that those children will pay through their parents gets into the government coffer. So you will enjoy my money, and then when I rise successfully, you will deny me of the privilege of or the right of passing that exam. I think the laws should be very much compared, because the criteria for entering into the university is through your WAEC, your NECO, and JAMB, right? And then possibly the post-UMA exams. So these are the criteria. So if they are reviewing it for the purposes of age, I wonder why they review. The problem that we are having in our society today has nothing to do with age. Of course, because of the globalization and the computer and jet age that we are, children are growing more faster in their mental capacity. So for you to begin to view a child of a 14 years child as if he's 14 right now, you'll be making a very big mistake, because their mental understanding and capacity is growing more than before. So I do not know the kind of leaders that have initiated that kind of bill. Because if you go to developed countries right now, and developing countries, a little child of 6-7 years old, what that child will do with the computer, it will look as if some people with the age of 20 in Africa, in Nigeria, cannot. That's because of the quality education that they have. So quality education has nothing to do with age.
You're saying we don't have quality education here?
No, you see, that's just the representation that our children are dummies. So trying to expose them to this kind of educational exams and opportunities at the age of less than 18, it means that you are making them not to comprehend well.
You're saying that's what the Ministry of Education is implying?
It has the implication that our children are dummies. Their brains are not. Yes, that their brains are not working well. And I'm only trying to let them know that in developed countries, what the variation that they are using cannot be compared. Children, you have seen cases in other countries, 21, they are already graduate, right? Some even have masters. So the issue of making children look like puppet and dummies is not welcome. I know they also want to look at the issue of, because 18 is usually when adults to start in Nigeria. When you are 18, that's when you can vote, right? And be voted for. So it's assumed that it's until you get to 18, that's when you are qualified to go to university, because university is meant for adults from 18 years. And I want to think that even if you are 20 years old, a child that is brilliant and intelligent of 14 years may still beat you.
All right.
So I think it's not a very good policy, but I do not understand the premise where they are coming from.
Now, let me tell you the premise where they're coming from, because they stated that a particular university in Nigeria that got, the reports that got to them, admitted a 10-year-old and 11-year-old into the university, and that was what they actually frowned at.
You see, when you use a very minute reason to generalize a convenient and more better standard, I think it's mediocrity. If a particular institution did that, there is need for investigation, right? There is need for caution. Caution the victim. Do not rob Peter to pay Paul. The fact that this was their example, very minute, and then you now want to generalize it and now pass a law, I think it's just that sometimes we make law for the now and we don't make law for the future, because I know certainly after a period of time those laws will be reviewed again.
But then we should also know, while we talk about this, that this is not new. This is something that has been, this is a law that has been there. He only stated that now he wants to implement it. But let's get your thoughts, Pastor Bado.
When you come to education, you come to my core, because that is where I've been for about a decade now. There is no justification for this policy. I'm trying to fathom what you were saying, that somebody got admitted into the university at the age of 10 or 12 or 11. I'm trying to look at the 6334 formation for the education.
How that was possible.
Exactly, I'm trying to look at the possibility of that. Now, so a child does 6 years of primary school and 6 years of secondary school. 3 years junior secondary, 3 years senior secondary. So at the end of the day, we have 12 years in that process. You see? So I'm looking at the possibility of an 11-10 being admitted.
You know, some schools
now,
they skip classes.
Now that is now, if that happened, these are exceptional cases. And when this has happened, you have to now, what is the work of the NUC? You have NUC is a regulatory commission that is put in charge of the universities. So what do you have to do now? You call that university and, in fact, interview these students. This person who was admitted, does the person have the mental capacity for the new elevation? If the person shows the mental capacity, that should be a welcome development. It should be clapped and not scolded. Because we have a child. Let me use parenting for example. You have a newborn baby. Maybe newborn babies begin to crawl and start to walk around the age of 8 months. Then yours begin to walk from 6 months, or is making attempts to walk from 6 months. Do you begin to flog the child? It's like you're walking too fast. You have to stop walking now because this is the time you should walk. It is appalling. I mean, since the inception of this government, while I don't want to just criticize them like that, but since the inception of this government, we have been seeing very funny policies being amplified, like the change of the national anthem and the restriction of admission into university to the age of 18. Meanwhile, in other advanced countries, people are even waiting to get young, let them go into the system. Where I was even thinking they will be making amends is the NYSC. Instead, they're making amends to the university admission age. It is really appalling that we have a system that wants to amplify something like this. Like the ambassador said, I've always been of the opinion that one of the biggest problems of Nigeria are the wrong policies and the wrong laws. Very wrong. People just wake up and make decisions the way they like, without any consideration of the future.
I think there was no consideration.
There was no consideration for this policy to be made, because when you look at, we are in a technologically advanced world where everything is advancing. Globalization is taking very, 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 very fast effect. And while this is going on, we should be embracing change. Instead, you are trying to take us back to the medieval eras, They're trying to take us back. Why is it that everything is taking us back in the country?
One of the women ministers actually backed this policy when she said that there are a lot of issues that go on in the university, lots of challenges, some of these vices that these kids are exposed to early, and that's our reason for backing this policy. So with that in mind, you don't see anything wrong with a 10-year-old getting to the university?
Like the ambassador said, you don't rob Peter to pay Paul. You don't rob Peter to pay Paul. If there are systems, whether you allow them go into the university now or 2 years later, they will still meet cultism in the university. I don't know if you get my point. They will still meet vices in the university system. So while these vices are existing, it is the responsibility of the university system and the government to see workable means to curb that vice, not to stall another process, because in your opinion you feel that stalling this process is curbing this vice. Okay, if they say don't admit 10 years old, or sorry, don't admit until 18 years of age, will it stop cultism? Will it stop these social vices in the university? It obviously would not stop it. In fact, when it comes to education, I have cried about education for many years now. Because when you look at our educational system, a lot of things are wrong, right from curriculum down to... Okay, now let me look at this other point of it. If you are bringing up a justifiable measure, then we can begin to say, okay, let's look into this policy. I think it will be a bit favorable here. When you want to keep these children from the high school age, when they have written their WAEC and they have written their JAMB, the first thing you must do is to ensure that JAMB does not have a validity period. I can't write JAMB after secondary school and then you tell me to wait till 18 and I have to pay to write JAMB again. So when I've finished from the secondary system, I write my JAMB and my WAEC. As WAEC is valid for a lifetime, my JAMB result should be valid for a lifetime. When I'm done with that, what do you want to do with me between that age to the age of 18? Do you want to revitalize our vocational systems? If you want to revitalize our vocational systems, then this may be a workable policy. And then you don't just say this policy will take effect from 2025. What measures are you putting in place to handle this policy? So if, for instance, you want to revitalize our vocational systems, then tell us by 2028 or by 2027, this policy will take effect. By that time, we should have been able to revitalize vocational systems around the 36 states of the Federation. In fact, in all the 774 local government areas, we've put in a robust vocational training system that when the children are done with secondary school, we compulsorily send them into vocational training. I mean, in Japan, in Finland, nobody writes exams in the primary, elementary levels. It's not, you don't write exams because they don't teach them competition. From the beginning, they teach them patriotism.
Don't you think that has helped our educational system? You don't think it has impacted our educational system
in
any way? The exams, yes, in the primary level.
That is the biggest problems that we've had. In fact, victimization begins from exam. If we are going to run a system where everybody is treated equally, we are deviating now a bit. But let's deviate. This is a good deviation, but still on education.
It's still on education, not deviation.
If we are going to run a system where everybody is treated equally, when you see the exam system, there is no equality in the exam system. Because at the end of the day, somebody is bleeding while the other person is rejoicing. Some people failed all through their lives because they failed one exam. Meanwhile, exams are not the true test for knowledge. I could read for an exam, memorize, cram for that exam, and pass the exam.
And not know what to
Meet me 2 days later, everything you asked in that exam, I do not know any answer to any of them.
But then, Ambassador, do you agree that this examination, especially in the primary level, is something that is not impacting the educational system positively?
Well, you know that I have always advocated a very big intentional review in our educational system. And what also go on in my mind is it a policy or a bill that is trying to discourage and eliminate Western education in Nigeria?
That's far.
Because so many things are going on in my mind.
Okay.
Where some people do not really appreciate Western education. And is it that it has infiltrated into the National Assembly, where they are now trying to come up with policies to discourage Western education? These are things that is yearning for answers. Again, I equally feel that it's time for the online universities to strive. It's now time that foreign universities will strive, because if you put up so much bottleneck, bureaucracies in your own institutions, nobody will want you to delay the destiny of her children or his children because of your policies that seems to be inimical to the development and the welfare of the children. Now, if this policy will take in place in 2015, right? 2025, that's next year. So are you saying that a child who is 13, who is already maybe 14, 15, trying to round up the secondary school, have to wait behind?
For another 4 years. For
another 4, not a fault of his or hers. This was a policy you made. So what remedy, are you going to employ on these innocent children because of this kind of, I don't want to say reckless policy?
But I'm wondering how come we're not aware that this has actually been there. Because I remember after my secondary school, some of my mates who tried to get into school were not up to 18 at that time, were not allowed into the universities. They had to go to private universities. Well, so this is not a new policy.
Well, when you talk about it not being, if the policies has been there, there is no way they will tell you it's going to start in
They said according to the Minister of Education, yes, when he made this announcement, he said that this policy has been there, this is not something new, but it has not been implemented all this while. So now he wants to pay more attention to making sure that it is implemented.
Like he said, it has been in the Universal Basic Education Act all along. But he is now amplifying it.
Yes.
He's giving it a voice. And what we are criticizing in this program, on this program today, is that in a 21st century globalized world, why should you be amplifying an archaic policy? When you are in a new world, you should be saying that this policy, like I said, if we review our educational system drastically, there may be a place for this policy to be enacted. Let's say, for instance, from the primary years, the focus is different. If you go to the junior secondary years, they are jam-packed. Some of them are doing 18, 21 subjects. Crazy. One
with heavy school bag.
One political office holder will wake up and remember he did history when he was in school. He said, add history. He will come and
Talking about adding now, we're about to add, you know some of these courses, some of these subjects were taken off. Some of them are no longer doing those language, traditional subjects, those Igbo, Yoruba. Some of these schools are no longer doing that. And now we're looking at imputing it back into the system. That's talking about adding, that's another.
That is what I'm saying.
But is there no need for this?
You see, the policies, the content, the curricula or curriculum of our school system, we have always said is part of why we are having liabilities in the name of graduates.
Exactly.
The content is not, viable. It's not a content that makes you self-reliant at the end of the day. When the UB declared the emergency in the UB structure of education and saying they're going to review some of their policies, I applauded them. And I thought that what they should be telling us now is how the content of the educational system have been reviewed, you know, to meet global needs. Any education that does not solve problem is a waste. It's not education. Any education that is not needed in the labor markets, in the global world, is a waste. So we have been advocating, put up content, put up causes that is, you know, contemporary needed today, so that when our young people graduate from the school, they will be needed to solve the problems in that industry. So the challenge of our educational system has nothing to do with age.
All right.
Nothing at all.
What we desire is the content. Review the academic content to become solution driven. So once you create that, you are in the right path. So what they're trying to say is it will help to kill the educational system more, because you are chasing rats when we are supposed to be chasing elephants. So I think we are going to achieve low performances. We are going to produce more liabilities. We are going to discourage academic, enthusiasm among young people, because age limitation can be a very bad, discouragement. Also, my appeal, because we have leaders who are headlong, they are bent on doing what they want to do, even if it is not going to be impactful positively on the society. So I want to use this opportunity to call on parents, begin to exploit online educational system for your children. Let the foreign universities begin to open up for Nigerians for next year, 2025, and let entrepreneurship, begin to come up alive, so that our children's destiny will not be wasted.
So you're saying we should look for alternative
right now? Yes.